The COVID-19 situation in Europe is only getting worse. A low rate of vaccination combined with skyrocketing cases after the lifting of the curbs. It is the same story in many countries that are dealing with the escalating crisis. Let's start off with Germany. The German Chancellor Angela Merkel has warned people and called for an extra push when it comes to the vaccination. This comes just a day before the federal and local leaders meet to chalk out measures to curb a fourth wave of the virus.
Die gegenwärtige Pandemielage in Deutschland ist dramatisch. Ich kann es nicht anders sagen. Die vierte Welle trifft unser Land mit voller Wucht. Wir müssen dringend beim Impfen vorankommen. Und deshalb möchte ich auch diese Gelegenheit nutzen, um für das Impfen zu werben. Es ist auch jetzt überhaupt nicht zu spät, sich für eine Erstimpfung zu entscheiden. Denn jeder, der sich impfen lässt, schützt sich selbst und andere. Und wenn sich genügend Menschen impfen lassen, ist das der Weg heraus aus der Pandemie.
Germany reported close to 53,000 COVID-19 infections on Wednesday alone. Almost 300 people lost their lives, bringing the total death toll to more than 98,000. The surge in infections coming at a time when Germany is in a crucial political phase. Merkel's term will end soon, and three parties are negotiating the formation of a new government after an inconclusive election in September. Merkel has emphasized on the need of a national effort to control the fourth wave. She appealed to the federal and the regional leaders to introduce tighter restrictions. Rules that are likely to be announced include forcing people to show proof of vaccination or negative COVID-19 test on public transport and at work as well. Tighter restrictions will be imposed for leisure activities. Financial aid for companies and individuals hit by the COVID-19 crisis is likely to be extended by 3 months till March next year. Merkel also appealed to those who are skeptical about vaccines to change their minds. Germany is Europe's most populous country. Only 68% people have been fully vaccinated. Only 5% of the population has had booster shots. Meanwhile, Belgium has tightened the COVID-19 restrictions. The country has made it mandatory for people to wear masks and enforced work from home. This comes as Belgium also faces the fourth wave of the COVID-19 outbreak. From Saturday, everyone in indoor venues such as cafes and restaurants will have to wear a mask. The rule applies to those aged 10 or above. People going to restaurants or theatres must present a COVID-19 pass. People at nightclubs will be tested before they are allowed to dance without masks.
Alors qu'il y a une déception et une frustration, je le comprends très bien. Nous avons tous espéré que l'automne aurait été plus léger et qu'on aurait eu un hiver sans corona. Et je sais que de nombreuses personnes sont fatiguées, et en particulier les personnes qui travaillent dans les soins, qui sont de nouveau submergées par la pandémie.
People in Austria are rushing to get vaccinated against COVID-19. The country has one of the lowest vaccination rates in Western Europe. It is now becoming an epicenter of a new wave of the COVID-19 outbreak. About 65% of Austria's population is fully vaccinated. The country has recorded one of the highest infection rates in Europe. Authorities have ordered a lockdown for nearly 2 million people who are not fully vaccinated. Dutch health authorities have said that they are running short on COVID-19 tests. This comes as the Netherlands registered more than 20,000 new COVID-19 cases for the second day in a row. This is the highest number of daily cases that the country has registered since the pandemic started. Hospital admissions are on the rise. The latest wave began shortly after the government ended social distancing measures in September. The decision was reversed when the cases started rising. Earlier this month, the Dutch Prime Minister reimposed a partial lockdown as well. The World Health Organization has said that COVID-19 deaths rose by 5% in just the last week. This makes Europe the only region in the world where COVID-19 deaths have increased. COVID-19 fatalities in other parts of the world remain stable or even declined. Out of 3.3 million new infections reported, 2.1 million came from Europe. It was the 7th consecutive week that COVID-19 cases continue to rise across Europe. About 60% of people in Western Europe are fully vaccinated against COVID-19. Officials are struggling to overcome widespread vaccine hesitancy. Our correspondent Lucy Hof is now joining us on the broadcast live from Brussels. Hi, Lucy. The low vaccination rates across Europe, a major cause of concern coming amid this fresh rise in cases. Give us a sense of to what extent vaccine hesitancy has to do with this. What are the other factors contributing to this low vaccination rate?
Well, yeah, that's right. I mean, you mentioned Germany there, which is lagging well behind other European countries with a vaccine rate of 70%. That is around 65% in Austria, meaning, of course, millions of people, are thought to be around 2 million, are now back under lockdown conditions because they haven't been vaccinated. So turning the screw on the unvaccinated by European governments is an effort to incentivize people to take the jab. Those people who are hesitant but perhaps not anti the vaccine, who could be persuaded with the threat of tighter lockdown measures, including being restricted from going to bars and restaurants, to museums and theatres, and only in the case of Austria being allowed out for essential business and to go to work. Here in Belgium, there were some plans to make vaccination mandatory, but instead there is an extension of the existing COVID pass, where in order to access public facilities you need to show proof of vaccination through a QR code. Now, in the east of the bloc there is real concern. We know that in Eastern European countries such as Romania and Slovakia there are much higher rates of infection and very, very low rates of vaccination. We have an EU official travelling to the east of the bloc today to speak to those countries where vaccine hesitancy is high. So there is increasing exasperation and frustration from EU leaders that much of what is powering this fourth wave is those who are unvaccinated in Europe, and certainly the efforts and the restrictions that have been taken by a number of EU countries this week is about targeting that group.
Right. Lucy, we also earlier saw reports of the protests that have been taking place in several parts against the restrictions, against the vaccine passes, against the COVID-19 test restrictions and the mandatory wearing of masks as well. What is the update on that? Protests, of course, also being another concern, which means that people are taking to the streets in large numbers, which again becomes the breeding ground for the infection.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned earlier in the report about fatigue. You know, people are very fatigued by nearly now 2 years of restrictions. We have had demonstrations on the streets of the Austrian capital, Vienna. There have been long-standing demonstrations across Germany where there is that very stubborn group of people, stubborn sect of people that are refusing the vaccine. There has also been regular demonstrations on the weekends in French cities with a feeling that these new measures are a restriction on personal liberty, that things like the wearing of face masks, such as mandatory vaccination, or lockdowns targeting the unvaccinated are not going down well with people who still feel very, very opposed. And given that we are only like to see measures extended and increased for those unvaccinated, those tensions and that division is likely to increase. It is a real problem, vaccine hesitancy here, and certainly EU governments, as I say, are frustrated at that continued resistance from those groups who don't want to be inoculated.
Right. Lucy Hof getting us those updates from Brussels. Thanks very much. We're leaving it there for the moment. WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.